Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Welcome to all my listeners. I'm so excited, as always, to record today's episode, which is going to be all dedicated to the electric and intense number 8. But before I jump right in, if you're new here, then first of all, welcome. In this podcast, we discuss numerology as a path for inner transformation, inner growth, and deep self-understanding. I attempt to make numerology accessible and applicable for everyday life matters and is a tool that will make this world a little better, one step at a time. And I have a special announcement today, guys. So before anything else, I want you to know that for my 38th birthday that's coming on October 2nd, I'll be giving away my online numerology course for the biggest discount I've ever given. So you can get it for only 79 euros instead of 279, which means you're getting a 200 euro discount. The offer is going to be valid from October 1st to October 10th. And all you have to do is simply go to the link in the podcast or episode description, where you can both read about the course and also click on the Purchase Course Now button. And upon checkout, make sure to enter the coupon code Numbers Rule as one word. Numbers Rule is one word. I recommend using caps lock. So please go ahead, make use of that. It starts again from October 1st till October 10th, 2022, right? So as per the recording of this episode. Some other things you should know if you're new here. So first of all, if you haven't done so yet, I really welcome and invite you to join my Facebook numerology group. It's a very engaging space to learn numerology and find kindred spirits along the path. The link is found in the podcast's main page. You can also find the group on Facebook under the name Numerology-GPS for the Soul. And of course, guys, if you haven't gotten a numerology reading so far in your life, I really recommend you get one. And to do so, you can contact me through my website link. Again, it's provided in the podcast description. And please make sure to join my newsletter on my homepage, on my website, if you want to get further, deeper information about numerology, more education about the matter, more info about spiritual guidance and spiritual knowledge, and all kinds of special perks that only my newsletter subscribers get. So just keep yourself updated. Okay, my dears, so without further ado, let us jump into today's episode, number 8. So, of all numbers, it has always been the case that number 8, of all numbers for my students, has been the hardest to understand. It's been, all my students had a very difficult time wrapping their heads around this number and what it really means. So everybody kind of when I ask my students or when I ask any kind of numerology lover, tell me about number 8. Then it's kind of yeah, it's ambitious. It's an achiever. It's, I don't know what, powerful, wealthy, you know what I mean? These are the 3-4 words that people basically know about number 8. And it's always really funny because if I ask people about any other number, say number 3 or I don't know, number 5 or whatever, number 6, people have a little bit more an easy time to get a hang of what these numbers really are. But number 8 always remains this enigma, somewhat complex, somewhat kind of like shrouded in mist, and so I want to use this episode to really go deeper and understand its nature on a whole new level and unpack it for you, because 8 is much more than these 3 to 4 words that I just mentioned. Okay, so let's explore together the real deeper nature of this number and what really motivates it and what makes it move. So to understand number 8, the first thing we need to understand is that 8 always strives to grow and to accomplish more and more personal expansion. The 8 needs to expand its sense of control and ability to command its own reality. Different numbers, there are other numbers that have the need to expand, but 8 needs to expand, as I kind of pointed out here, the sense of being able to control one's reality, meaning to influence the events and the people around them. 8 is a lot about like being able to use my personal power. So they need to feel very essentially that they have actual influence on the people that surround them, on the events of their life, right? 8s need to feel that like they are kind of pulling life by the reins. They, like, by the power of their will, they can change things, right? Like life is not random. Life just doesn't throw things at you, but you can direct things. So it's a lot about like learning this lesson of how can I apply my own personal will and power to make things move in the way I want them to move, right? So when I use the words control and command reality, we might have this negative connotation in our minds due to like all kinds of conditioning around these words. But I want us to look at it in a neutral way, simply as a universal force. 8 is another universal force that embodies itself in a human being and has its own wishes and wills and impulses. And so we start by understanding that, by laying that ground. Now, as someone who is meant to learn the lesson of control and power, naturally this lesson and this number, this person, with a strong 8 in their core numbers will invite already early on in childhood many opposing forces, even suppressing forces that will kind of clash into them and test their power, try to overpower them, to dominate them. There will be many power struggles for like an 8 throughout their life, many attempts of domination going back and forth. Who has the greater power here, right? So they in turn will also fight back to find their own dominance and power in the situation. But as you can already understand, the path of the 8 is not such a smooth path, right? The path for control, dominance, power, and being able to command one's own reality necessitates a lot of friction, a lot of bumping into other powers, some weaker, some stronger than myself, and to find my place, so to speak, within that hierarchy of natural powers, right? So the 8 works and understands this language of hierarchies. They look up to those stronger than them and strive to become like them, and they try to dominate and control those that are weaker than them and command them. So that's a little bit the language of the 8, right? So it's a complex number, interesting number. Now, I mentioned, the word friction, and it's important to understand that number 8, as opposed to all the other numbers, learns a lot through friction, right? So that's what I meant by like a messy path. It's like the way to power and to gain control can be really messy because you need to bump into many other forces. You need to clash into many other forces that resist you. You know what I mean? So 8s often will find themselves getting into messy situations, entangled in all kinds of like questionable situations, sketchy situations, simply because they learn through friction. They often, they're a very dynamic energy. The 8 is very dynamic and intense. That's why I called, this episode like, intense and electric 8, right? So they are very intense and they kind of like rush forward. They usually gallop forward. They want to drill through things, overcome things. So they usually bump into other forces. And that's the way they learn. So very often it's kind of learning in hindsight, right? Like I, first of all, rush into things, I bump into them, and after clashing and after some explosions, I learn some lessons. So it's a kind of lessons hard-earned in a sense. And this is going to be especially true if one has more than one 8 in their 5 core numbers. So if you're someone who has, say, an 8 in your life path number and an 8 in your expression number or solar number, right? So 2 8s. I can almost assure you that your path is or has been pretty messy. You got yourself into some messy situations out there. Well, I'm curious to hear what you think about this and what's your experience. You're welcome to write me through my website. I'm very, very curious to know about your experiences naturally, or leave a comment in the podcast. On Spotify, I believe there's this option. Now, let's move a step forward. So 8s, being this energy that aspires to, this personality that aspires to power, it's important to understand that they admire strength and they hate weakness, okay? 8s aspire to personal strength and they admire strong people. They look up to successful people. Sometimes they might like over-idealize strong people and not see like the many, many failures that successful people had to go through in order to reach that place that they rightfully earned. But still, that's a little bit the way they work. So it is hard for them to accept weakness in both in themselves and in others. So that's why, for example, like on the surface of it, if you talk to them about like, self-acceptance or self-love or letting things be as they are, all these like very deep spiritual concepts, they might at first nod with acceptance because it kind of sounds good, but deep inside, deep in their heart, they actually have a strong resistance towards these possibilities. They rebel against these gentle words, these words of that to them, you have to understand that for them, in their ears, it's interpreted as like giving up or giving in or kind of being weak, like not being strong enough to overcome my weaknesses. What do you mean to self-love myself? If I have something I don't like, I overcome it. I make myself better, the best version of myself, right? That's like 8. So it's hard for them to be vulnerable, right? I mean, they just feel they need to become better. So naturally, they try to hide their weaknesses, and they have a hard time accepting that they don't control the events of reality, the outcome of events, and the people around them as well. So even in conversation, it's very interesting that you can have people, 8s they have a very sharp and impressive mind. You can have very deep conversations with 8s. And the interesting thing is, they can understand many, many things, but the moment you create a space where the conversation opens to like this vulnerable space, that's where you'll suddenly see you're hitting a wall. Suddenly they close up, they harden, they toughen up because they don't like being vulnerable. They interpret that as being weak. So that's a little bit of like how 8 moves about. Now, before I move to the next and very, very interesting point about 8 being a survivor, I want to take a moment and just remind all of you guys, all of you precious listeners, that you can get my online numerology course for only 79 euros instead of 279. As I'm having my birthday, I want to give this gift to all of you out there. You can simply go to my website and at the checkout, make sure to insert the coupon code numbers rule. One word, capital letters. The offer is valid from October 1st to October 10th. Make sure to make use of that so we have more trained numerologists out there. And of course, guys, make sure to get yourself a numerology reading. That's one of the best ways to feel the life-changing effects and the power of numerology. So contact me directly through my website and book yourself one. That's the only way to get closer to numerology and feel its real effects. And naturally, remember to join my newsletter so you can stay updated with all my latest numerology offers, knowledge, courses, and much more. Great, so having said all of that, let us come back to number 8. And our next point is talking about 8, the survivor. So when it comes to surviving difficult times, times of crises, times of adversity, 8 is truly exceptional. I mean, they're able to go through immense difficulties, immense adversities, extremely trying times, and simply never break. They can fall many times, but the amazing thing is that they will always get back up on their feet, wipe off the dust, and keep moving forward. There's a great focus in number 8 and something that simply never gives up. And naturally, it's a bit like how life forges them to be that powerful persona that they're meant to be. But that's really, really impressive. I think that out of all the numbers, number 8 is really the winner here in terms of like being a survivor. Yeah. Now, another really interesting thing about number 8 is that, boy, they are perhaps the most charged number in terms of intensity, electricity, and that, this makes them one of the numbers with the strongest sexual urges. 8s are very often extremely sexual. There's a lot of libido. There's a lot of lust. And they also feel everything very powerfully and intensely. So it's like intense anger, intense excitement, intense falling in love, intense competitiveness. And it's not... Let's make like an important differentiation here. I'm not talking about being emotional. That's more fitting to number 6, okay? But 8s are not emotional. They're not centered in emotions, but the intensity, meaning like the volume with which they feel things, is really strong and powerful. So, if you're starting to tie all those dots together of what I said so far, you can realize why being so sexual, electric, with strong desires and intense feelings, how 8s can also get themselves, first of all, they can really go far. They can achieve a lot, right? They can be great achievers on the one hand, but can also get themselves into those messy situations I was mentioning earlier. I've known many 8s who got themselves into very, very questionable sexual situations, for example, like crossing their own boundaries, violating their own boundaries. So if you're an 8, especially a person that has more than 1 8 in your core numbers, I'm sure you know what I mean, especially if you're a woman. So again, I'm curious to hear from you, and I welcome emails, guys. So please send me emails. Let me know about your experiences and how this information touches you and reaches you. I'm curious to know. Let's talk about transformation. So this word is also very important for number 8. And what I mean by transformation, I mean that when this intensity of the 8 is directed towards spirituality, towards inner transformation, they can reach incredible heights and really pierce into new frontiers, into true greatness. So their ability to achieve, higher states of consciousness, to pierce through glass ceilings and reach heights that others don't, is immense. They may go through profound processes of death and rebirth, just like the symbol, by the way, of infinity that resembles an 8, right? It's like this, there's this very famous, picture of this, on the one hand, like being like dying from the one end and then being reborn on the other in the shape of the 8. And it's very symbolic. They can go through these processes of, it's almost like a lightning bolt that like electrifies everything, and they die and they are born again with immense, powerful transformational processes. So again, I'm very curious to know if anyone of you here experienced that. It's important though to mention that to reach these spiritual heights, they will need to step beyond their naturally self-centered, egocentric nature. I mean, 8s tend to use everyone and everything to achieve their own ends. Very often, kind of like going about according to this approach of the end justifies the means. So they're always like the center focus of everything. Their goals are the most important thing, and they just see you as like a product or an object that can either stand in their way or help them fulfill their goals. So they first have to go beyond that to a certain degree to be able to, really achieve those great spiritual heights. So we're slowly kind of approaching the end of this episode, but I want to mention a couple more important points. So first of all, 8 is a strongly physical number. I mentioned that it has a strong mind, and that is very true. 8 has a sharp mind, a strategic mind, but it's also like a strongly physically anchored number, which means that they need a lot of movement and they need physical challenges in their life. You will be surprised, or maybe not surprised, but it's interesting to note that many athletes have strong 8s in their charts. Many competitive athletes and even top athletes have 8s in their chart. Just the first one that pops into my mind is like Michael Jordan. The others are more like to my personal liking, so you don't know them. Because I love table tennis, and in Germany, like one of the top players in the world, Timo Boll, like he has also an 8, and anyhow, so just saying that. And it is important that they maintain good health and use the body as a means to become stronger, healthier, and highly motivated, so they can use their body doing, for example, martial arts or sprinting or I don't know what, like any kind of like active sports, gym, powerlifting, CrossFit, to motivate themselves and keep themselves like vibrant and healthy. And last but not least, I want to say that 8s are simply great motivators. In their higher potential, they're amazing motivators. They can really push you to your best. To never give up, to always believe in your ability to overcome, to become better, to find a solution, and to drill through any kind of problem, through any kind of obstacle. And in that, they're amazing, and that makes them into, amazing and excellent motivational coaches, or like business consultants, or, even strategic geniuses, because they believe there's always a way to achieve what needs to be achieved. So they can really move mountains when they're in their power. And they will help you discover that same power within you if they are, again, functioning on the level of a giver. When an 8 becomes a giver, they are an amazing empowerer. So I think that's really a good point to start wrapping it up. And as you can see, I mean, 8 is not just made up of 3 to 4 words. And I hope that I managed to, show you a little bit more of the rich inner world of 8 and the way it functions. So it's actually a very rich and complex world. And like, frankly speaking, I could have continued talking for like another hour about many like other facets of this number. And but hey, I mean, if I do that, I simply won't have material for future episodes. So I'll keep it at that. And guys, I really hope, as always, that this inspires you to learn more about the numbers and educate yourself in numerology to make yourself in this world, as I said in the beginning, a bit more conscious, a bit more beautiful. So just don't forget that you can get my online numerology course for a huge discount for only 79 euros instead of 279. This offer is going to be valid from October 1st till October 10th, 2022, as per the recording of this episode. Upon checkout, remember to use the coupon code NUMBERSRULE as one word, all capital letters. Remember, you can also get a numerology reading with me. Simply contact me directly through my website link. And if you haven't done so yet, please join my Facebook numerology group, become a part of the conversation there, and learn more about numerology. And then remember to also join my newsletter and always get updated with numerology education, spiritual knowledge, and perks that only my newsletter subscribers get. Okay, my friends, as always, I wish you well, and I'll catch you up in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.